What's up, gang? It's Casey Lee Williams, and I'm back with another video. It's nice to see you. I'm looking very whimsical today. The Wicked vibe was not intentional, but it's welcome. But no, I'm looking very whimsical because A, I felt like it, and B, we're gonna be talking about something very whimsical indeed today. We're gonna be talking about RWBY Volume 9, we're gonna talk about the soundtrack, and we're gonna talk about the inspiration behind the songs. I'm super excited to talk about the musical inspo because this was obviously the first volume that I kind of got to take over musically with my good friend Martin Gonzalez and sort of just give the music a reimagining, and this volume was perfect for that because we ended up plot-wise in a completely different magical, mysterious kind of world, so it literally couldn't have been like a nicer segue into getting to try out new stuff and getting to introduce the fandom to what my personal style is a little bit like musically, as well as what my style is like collaborating with one of my friends. I also did just put out a solo EP, which is obviously very different in style, but if you need some crumbs, if you need something to eat, I have music out, and I also have some music out with my band too, and we are writing new music, so hopefully you'll be as excited about that as I am. So regardless, I still really want to talk about this music because in its absence at the moment, like, this music means a lot to me, and I was really excited to see the way that people received it that were watching Volume 9, and yeah, I just love what me and Martine were able to achieve, and I'm really excited to get into it. So let's get started. I'm gonna cover the songs in order, so the first one we're gonna start with is Inside. And this one, actually, I don't have too many very specific inspirations to really share because this song was so much a big experiment. It was an inspiration of such a huge culmination of things, but mostly a lot of anime intros, which obviously there are thousands of, if not more. So anime intros, Japanese rock, like huge inspo, kind of just all around. For me, musically, some of my favorite anime kind of still stands, like Kill la Kill, all of that music, huge inspiration. One of my favorite anime intros, probably like my favorite ever, is Unravel from Tokyo Ghoul Season 1. That's a big inspo. And then, yeah, like a lot of anime intros have this really particular theme of just being really experimental and all over the place, especially like the very, very beginning of the song or the intro can kind of sound really, really wild, and it just immediately like brings you into something you don't know what you're getting into. And then it can kind of change on a dime, so that is kind of what happens in Inside, that very beginning like sort of plucky guitar part. That actually came from something that I started working on at the very, very, very beginning. I worked on building it off of a sample first, and then sort of tried to figure out what to do with the time signature, definitely wanted it to be kind of an odd meter, and then I really just wanted to try to find some way of making that the intro, making that the start of the harmony, which was very, very off-putting and like confusing but exciting, and then bringing it into, you know, a full-on rock moment. So that's kind of what we were trying to achieve with Inside. And once we wrote that chorus part, like, it was just so insane that we really didn't feel that we needed too much of a bridge for this song, because together with the verse, the pre-chorus, and the chorus, there was already so much going on and so much to hear, so we really didn't feel that we needed to overcomplicate the song. It was already kind of a lot to digest, so that's why the song ended up the way that it did form-wise. I think melodically, I definitely drew from tons of anime intros for this melody. But yeah, funny enough, Inside is one of those that I like don't have a ton of very, very particular songs or artists to really even share because it's so all over the place. Next up, we have Chatterbox. This one was super fun because it started off in a really like psychedelic rock place, actually, when we were writing it for the scene, and then it ended up in this tonally very, very dark metal, slow burn kind of vibe. So definitely have a couple of important inspos for this one. I think right off the bat, you definitely can sense and hear a lot of like 90s metal and grunge kind of inspiration, and that is definitely right? For me, my biggest inspiration with this one was Deftones right from the very beginning. I grew up listening to Deftones, and my brother and sister, who are a bit older than me, I ended up just kind of getting handed down lots of music from them. My whole family has exquisite music taste, and they're all very talented. I'm very lucky to have grown up in a family that was so artistic and like so musical. So thankfully, you know, to my siblings getting that iPod passed down, I got to hear a lot of different stuff. I grew up loving Deftones, Mute Math. I wanted to say, at least with this song, there's like a tiny bit of like Korn inspo, but I never really even listened to much Korn. It was just when I was extra edgy as a teen and getting into metal, there were a couple Korn songs that I was like, a little bit of like System of a Down, A Perfect Circle, and the Mars Volta, which will definitely come back. And then another inspiration that I definitely want to cite is the bridge for Chatterbox actually has a very Paramore sound to me. Two bands that actually, at least melodically for me, always come up as inspirations are actually Paramore and this band called Anne Berlin. I used to listen to Anne Berlin in like 2008 or 2010, and they had this one album called Never Take Friendship Personal that was just constantly on repeat. With Paramore, Hayley Williams' delivery usually is always just so gutting and so emotional, and honestly, I mean, that's really one of my main heroes and inspirations for like rock vocals in general. I feel like I was built by Hayley Williams, so much love to her, for real. Anytime that I get compared to Hayley Williams, my like 11, 12-year-old self is like, okay. So next we have Trapdoor. This one is one of my favorites. It's why we put out like a playthrough of it. I really wanted to just sing Trapdoor live, at least in some context, because melodically, it really digs in like emotionally. It's a very kind of, like I said, gutting, I guess, is a good word for what I like to do when I'm writing like a rock melody and lyrics. Trapdoor is interesting. So one of my favorite bands is like this industrial electronic like supergroup called Moderat or Moderat. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but I'm pretty sure it's Moderat. It's a couple of different artists that sort of joined forces and created a couple of albums, and they're just incredible. I don't know if y'all are like into electronic music like that, but I definitely am, and it's fueled a ton of the stuff that I have been currently making, that I want to make. And so they're actually definitely a big inspo because there's a lot of like electronic elements, a lot of synthesizers in this track, and they're definitely one of the artists that I was super inspired by. I love those like heavy industrial sounds, and I thought that would be perfect too for this song because it's a really like hollow, almost like empty, just like heart destroyed kind of feeling that this song is trying to come across with. And I really just wanted to instrumentally as well show Ruby's like complete despair in this moment. She's just completely given up on herself, and she's seeing all of her friends kind of come into their own, like watch new relationships form, and they're sort of just like figuring everything out, and she's supposed to be the leader and she's supposed to know what she's doing, and she has just given up completely. So I really wanted to convey that feeling. Martine totally saw where I was coming from with that, and we collaborated on making something that felt still like a really fun rock tune, but at the same time like very depressing. Those are some of my favorite songs, honestly, just in general, songs that like bop so hard, but the lyrics are just so upsetting. So I kind of loved getting to do that with this song, and as soon as we got together to work on the rest of the song, once we sort of dug in and started working on that transition from the first chorus into the second verse, as soon as we tried that guitar riff and then bringing the drums in, it just like, we were just so excited. We were so happy. We were like, this bangs, dude. And like, that just feels so good, you know? That's one of the greatest things about getting to work with a friend is, you know, if we're just kind of laughing and we're nerding out about things, like, that's how you know, like, it's gonna be good music, and or at least you can be satisfied with it because you had a really good time making it. And that's pretty much was our whole experience writing this music. We got to bring out things in each other musically that we didn't even necessarily see happening, and it just naturally happened. Martin comes from a much more like new metal prog background than I do, and he also like loves electronic music and like, you know, has had an EDM phase just like I have. So he was really, really down to sort of make this soundtrack a big fusion of a lot of different styles, and you know, that's why it worked so well. I think Trapdoor melodically as well, very inspired by just that anime video game lyrical song vibe. Like once we started writing that first verse, I knew that I wanted the melody to start off really simple and very low, sort of monotone, and then like really build up to like something very like angry and passionate and just like done, you know? Also, I just realized I have not even a little bit been doing this in order. I've just been like reading this wrong. So sorry. But next we're gonna talk about Checkmate. This one has some pretty obvious inspirations, which is totally fine because the original band that kind of inspired this track, at least for me, they're sick. So the band is called Caravan Palace. Some people definitely already like clocked this inspiration as soon as the song came out. So Caravan Palace has this incredible song and music video called Lone Digger. You should definitely go check it out if you haven't already. As soon as we saw this palace setting, we saw kind of the silliness of this prince character, but deadliness, and saw this chessboard setting, we knew that we wanted to do something fun. We knew this was kind of going to be like the one opportunity in the volume to do something slightly less serious, but that still felt kind of badass. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Let's do something that's electro jazz, electro swing kind of thing. So that is exactly where we drew inspiration from, and we started off with, I wrote that little sax line, the like, and then just wanted to sort of build and produce something off of that. And then, yeah, we just went from there. And I guess that bridge that ends up happening in Checkmate too is very like disco inspired. I don't know if you can go as far as to say like ABBA, but I just knew that I really wanted to do like something simple, something fun that you could sing along with. And yeah, no, it turned out so fun. We got to collaborate with some awesome musicians, and you know, we had a crazy instrumental end with some solos that were just like ridiculous and really, really awesome. Lyrically too, I really wanted to continue my dad's sort of tradition, like lyrically with this album, so I was very conscious of that. And I was very conscious of like wanting to call back to songs that had already been written and themes that had already been spoken about, because there's so much music already in RWBY and in the RWBY verse, and I think it would be silly to not take advantage of that. It's incredible to bring so much newness, but I knew that the sounds we were going to be bringing to the show, this volume, were already going to be so new that it felt kind of essential to me to like continue the legacy in a way lyrically. So how did I do that with Checkmate? I called back songs like Neon. Neon was one of my favorites, still is one of my favorites that my dad ever wrote. I really could not believe the level of like divalicious those lyrics got. I did not know he had it in him, but I get it from somewhere. Songs too, like Big Metal Shoe and I'm the One. There's a lot of really fun on the nose lyrics, and I always really thought that those songs like shined in their own way, pun intended. So yeah, Checkmate is just a huge song of like silly innuendos and puns, and like I'm gonna kick your ass and you're just gonna deal with it. And I really wanted to embody like a different kind of voice too for the verses of that song. Like the vocal production too really helps, but I really wanted to like deliver it in a very carefree way, like no sweat off my back, like this fight's not even gonna be a thing. Moving on, this one I'm excited about as well, because I'm gonna talk about Worthy, which is Bumblebee Part 2. This song was one of the few that I did pretty much entirely on my own, like production and writing wise. Songs that I did on my own were Worthy and Quiet, and the Wings Lo-Fi remix. So Worthy is very special for a lot of different reasons. Really, I'm just like a stupidly emotional person. I cry at commercials that like are supposed to get you literally in like the bare minimum kind of way. And like I will literally be looking at a commercial and be like, this is the stupidest fucking shit I've ever seen, and like I have a single tear rolling down my cheek. So that's me. So as soon as I saw this scene and I knew that this was going to happen and I saw the setting, it was just so beautiful. It was so captivating, and it was so interesting the way that it kind of started off as like a conflict, just this kind of wild liminal space where they're just on this bridge in the middle of the sky, and it's like so windy and it's like kind of scary. And I really liked the way that was represented, a confession, especially like a gay confession between, like, you know, not only two women but two teammates that have been through so much together. I really wanted to, when the song came in, bring like a comfort and bring this peace, knowing that in the dialogue they start to confess to each other. I really wanted to bring in just a very, very light, kind of ethereal vibe to the scene. So inspiration-wise, some very, very clear inspirations in this one for me. A top one, which I think people have already, again, kind of clocked this, is Caroline Polachek. Caroline Polachek is one of my favorite artists in the past, like, couple of years. She is so cool, and she has created just this entirely new blend of sounds for, like, alt pop, indie pop. I absolutely love the way that she uses her voice as an instrument. That's also been something similar in Kimbra, who is another huge inspiration for me. And also, side note, along with Caroline Polachek, Imogen Heap. Imogen Heap is sort of one of those people that made using your voice as an instrument almost a staple, and she really changed the sound of like alt pop, or pop, I guess, even in general. She is absolutely incredible, so she's definitely another inspiration for this song. I guess if I even had to cite some like particular songs, I could even do that for this one. Caroline Polachek's Parachute and Go As a Dream, both huge inspirations. Those are the songs that I listened to over and over to try and understand how I could encapsulate the feeling that these songs give you, this weightlessness, just this like ethereal beauty and peace and mystery all at the same time. That is exactly what I wanted to capture here. And girl, like, Ariel did not need to go that hard with her verse. So Ariel wrote her own second verse. I went to school with Ariel, and I've always absolutely loved her songwriting and her voice. I just felt that she would be perfect for writing a verse that responds to the first one in its own way, and in a way that made sense and was extremely vulnerable. And she did it. So that's Worthy. Yeah, I'm very, very proud of that one, and just really, I just feel so lucky and like so glad that people received it the way that they did. I don't know, it was just like the cutest thing in the world, and to get to write a Bumblebee Part 2 also, it just felt really good. Okay, next we have Quiet, which is actually another one that I did pretty much on my own, and this one has also some very specific inspirations. Caroline Polachek is another inspiration still for this one. Aurora is another big inspiration for this one. And if y'all have listened to the song from my EP, Phantom Power, it's very similar. It has very similar influences. It's just a little bit more like fierce or like warrior-esque, that one. This one is a lot more quiet. I guess if I could give this song a word, it would be meditative. I have very particular feelings about just the general phenomenon of stillness and the juxtaposition of like stillness and chaos. I think that the two are absolutely necessary, and I've talked about this in numerous songs that I've written and songs that I'm writing. I think the two are very necessary for you as a human being to interact with the world. Everyone has different relationships with these things, but I really felt that seeing what John went through and just the pure scope of it, that these would be very important themes, and that these would be very good things to talk about when it came to what his mindset was like and how it must have felt to be alone for all that time. So this song is quite melancholy, but in a very like state of acceptance kind of way, if that makes any sense. The other big inspiration for this song is Sigur Rós, which is another one of my favorite bands, favorite artists ever. They're from Iceland, and I've seen them like 4 or 5 times live. And it's just, I'm not a very religious or spiritual person, really, but music is what I feel spiritual about, as corny as that sounds. And Sigur Rós, they would be they would be my messiah. Like, anytime that I go to one of their shows, it feels like an experience. It feels like a spiritual experience. I've said this before in other videos too, but girl, I gotta say it again. So they were a huge inspiration, and actually my bandmate Martin de Lima, he helped me put together like the string arrangement for this song Quiet, and he's also really inspired by Sigur Rós as well. So I really was very happy with like what I was able to achieve with these inspirations, and it still felt very me at the same time. But yeah, I love me just like a calm, meditative, like sort of lo-fi vibe, and I guess that's sort of what this one has, even though it gets a little bit more grand and epic and ethereal. I felt that the world and the character revelations that we were seeing and going through in Volume 9 were very much that. They were very ethereal, very like majestic. Epiphanies don't feel small. They feel very natural, they feel grounding, and they feel ethereal. So those were the different vibes that I was really trying to bring with these songs. Okay, next we have Guide My Way, Red Like Roses Part 3. This one as well, I have to say, really had a lot of big Anne Boleyn inspo, at least for me melodically. We knew that the song... I literally just got emotional re-listening to a tiny bit of the song and trying to talk about it. There are a couple songs like that for me on this soundtrack, and this one is one of them because this song was really special. This song I knew was very ambitious, you know, writing a Red Like Roses Part 3, which really wasn't necessarily the original intention. It was, okay, this is a last fight scene, this is hugely important, the main character is literally being reborn, this is a moment, this is a really integral moment, and we need to just represent this as best we can musically. So as always, that's what it was about. But once that connection was made, and once that connection was made, and once she grabbed her scythe again and like chose herself, I just knew like it's Red Like Roses time. That first ever thing that we did for RWBY, the Red Like Roses Red trailer, that like is my favorite thing ever. That is my favorite RWBY thing to ever come out of this show, because it was so inspirational and it was so one of a kind. I'm sure that any of you guys listening can understand that, and just at least the sheer importance and how pivotal that Red trailer was. And for me as a person, as a musician, like it was the start of something that would literally like define my life for the next 10 years, and I just had no idea. And that beginning melody, that Red Like Roses motif on the acoustic or nylon guitar was just so beautiful. I loved it. I knew in this moment that if there was any time to bring it back and repurpose it, it was gonna be this moment. So we got a little bit of that in there, and that counts as inspiration. You know, I can note my father because he wrote all of the music before this, and you know, his motifs and his sound is what made RWBY the character that she is today. This song as well, just like guitar-wise, Martin really pulled out all the stops. He's so good at creating a really beautiful atmosphere through textures and through just really gorgeous playing. I think like this song would not at all be what it is without his hand, without his playing, and without all of his musical ideas coming to life. This song, the same as Inside, feels like such a beautiful conglomeration of like anime OP inspiration. We wanted to make it emotional, we wanted to make it impactful, like in as many ways as we could, you know, musically, and emotionally. And yeah, again, like melodically, I just need to cite Anne Berlin. That whole first verse, the bridge, I just had his melodies from that band like super in the back of my mind when I went to write the stuff. I don't know if that's just because it feels like stuff that's really comfortable for my vocal range, or if I just really connect with that kind of melody writing, but I don't know. And then another inspiration for this one that's actually quite important to me is the whole bridge and sort of end section, that build up before the breakdown. Super Bring Me the Horizon. And if you know Bring Me the Horizon at all, like you probably, if you didn't make that connection already, will make it now, because it's got that really low like sub bass kind of pulsing as the vocal is dry and very in your ear, very whispery, kind of chanting something, and you just have the super like sub percussion in there as well. I used to love that band, and honestly I think their evolution has been really interesting, and the more that they've implemented electronic sensibilities into their rock and metal vibe, I think that it's mostly like worked out in a really, really cool way. And Martine, I know, like has also really liked them as well, so they were definitely an inspiration for this song, and definitely for this like breakdown part. Also, side note, at the very end of the breakdown where I whisper, "I'm what inspired the fairy tale," I was doing my best there to invoke Ruby Rose and her voice as well, because I really wanted it to feel like this is who I'm talking about. And she in this song is coming to terms with the fact that she will never be her mother, but that's okay, and that's not who she's meant to be. She can, like all of us, take the legacy that came before her and build something new, something better, and something that will continue to evolve. That's just human nature. And that was also, like, in a way, really big and representative for me. A lot of the time with my songwriting, I don't even make connections until much later, until the song is finished, but I also kind of connected later and realized that some of the way that I wrote this was me telling myself that I was worthy of taking over the job of my father. And by using the inspiration of everything we did before this, that I could create something of my own, and that it was just something evolved. And that's what it is to have legacy, and that's what it is to pass something on, you know, to your offspring. So that was very, very special, and this song was incredibly special for me. Okay, and we only have one more to talk about. I am going to shout out the Wings Lo-Fi version that I worked on, just because that was also very, very inspired by certain artists that I have like listened to just for the past many years, and that one has also been really inspired by a lot of like really cool electronic producers and like lo-fi artists that I've listened to for quite a while. Caroline Polachek as well, huge, and Kimbra, huge. I knew that I really wanted to sort of do a little remix or reimagined version of one of the ballads, and this one, the first one that was ever written, Wings, and the one that I think, you know, I was the youngest singing, and I had definitely a very particular sound, a very like innocent sound in the way that I would deliver vocals when I was that age, but I knew that I could do it even more justice now, and it's such a lovely, beautiful, and simple tune that I knew could probably sound really nice in the style of minimal production that I really enjoy writing in. So there was that. And now for the last song, The Edge, which is my favorite song. This song was just one of those experiences. Like, we didn't know exactly what we were gonna write. We knew that we wanted to write something more in the feel-good territory, but it's always kind of daunting to write the end credits song, because that's a full song that really should be complete and like ready for everyone's ears in this moment. And not only that, but after finishing a season, you really want to finish strong, and you really want the last auditory impression to be strong. My inspirations for this song also are like quite clear, for me at least. When I was a kid and I was getting into all different kinds of like alternative music and electronic music, I came across this band called Taiko, and in particular this song called A Walk. If you go listen to this song now, like, you can immediately see the inspiration and the similarity. I was so moved by this song when I heard it as a kid, and it just gave me a feeling that yet I just hadn't really experienced with music. It made me feel so calm and so grateful and happy to exist, just to be given life and to be experiencing every single thing I was experiencing, whether it was good or bad. And to be honest, that is really the vibe of a lot of end credit songs, and I think should be. You're excited for what comes next, but you need to be happy if this were the end. Ugh, are you fucking kidding me? If this were the end, like, would you be satisfied and would you be accepting? That is what I wanted for this last song. And that wasn't necessarily because, like, I knew Rooster Teeth was gonna no longer be a thing. I had no idea. That was completely out of left field. It was just, I knew that the end of this volume was very important, and we had a whole new thing coming with them going to Vacuo and them going back to their world, to Remnant, and having to be not only like the big heroes again, but like this is the end game for them when they go back to Vacuo. It's extremely daunting and important, but RWBY and the whole team are more ready than ever to go and deal with it and to go and fight as hard as they can. And RWBY in particular is now really, really grateful and really accepting of who she is. So anyway, I went on a tangent there. Yeah, so The Edge, production-wise, was very inspired by music of that nature that's like electronically driven, but still feels very like cinematic and epic in its own way. And another inspiration that I actually want to cite melodically is Julia Jacqueline. I was listening to a lot of her at the time. She is an acoustic folk singer-songwriter, incredible lyricist, and incredible like performer and melody writer. I think that a lot of the style of the verses that I wrote here were very inspired by her and like Caroline Polachek. Again, maybe a little bit of Aurora, a little bit of Maggie Rogers, and for that matter, I guess a little bit of like Bjork too. All of these women do such an exceptional job of using their voice, and I typically don't like to say like the gift they were given, but using that instrument and pulling something so otherworldly from that to tell a bigger story or to talk about something that is beyond them. And obviously, like, I don't even know if these artists would say this about themselves or even, you know, that they are talking about subject matter wise like something bigger than themselves, but that's how they make me feel with their voices and the way that they write and the way that they use their instruments. And that was really important for me, and I really, really wanted to do that with this song. I wanted to write something that felt hopeful, but again, just like grateful and accepting and excited for what comes next. This song also lyrically alludes a bit again to RWBY and her mother and the weight of your predecessor, the hero that came before you, and trying to be them. But sort of after the end of Red Like Roses Part 3, you know, I really wanted to show her mentality that she was truly accepting of herself and that her mother is a part of her, but she doesn't have to be her mother. So it's sort of like part of one of the many things I was trying to allude to in the bridge of The Edge. And then of course it needed to be closed out with just one of the most insane guitar solos that I've ever heard that Marty just pulled out of his ass. He's just so incredible with his instrument and with his production, and I was just so blessed to get to work with him for this, because not only did he pull all the very best out of me, and I like to think that I did with him, but he was just so open to experimentation. And that's what I needed for this album. That's what I needed in order to believe in myself, believe in what we were doing, and to believe that what I had to bring to the table on my own to this show was going to be really not only worthy, but it was going to exceed people's expectations, exceed my own expectations, honestly. This soundtrack was birthed out of just complete love and adoration that we have for music and music of all kinds, both me and Martine. And also just need to shout out like RWBY, because they were so patient and so insanely okay with us just going off book and doing things that we thought were gonna work. The volume was very experimental on its own, but musically they were really, really, really great about letting us have a lot of creative control, and that was just incredible. You really can't say the same for all other like creative teams on like a show like this, like a franchise. And they really just let us experiment. They let us go as far out the box as we wanted to, and thankfully I really think that we ended up with something that really does sound like nothing else in the RWBY music universe, I guess. So once again, I just want to thank you so much for your support, for your openness, and for inviting me in so sweetly to make my own music for this show and to sort of like carry on this legacy that my dad left me that really did feel like a huge weight on my shoulders at first. And then once I started getting in the right mindset, once I started working with Martine Gonzalez on it, it felt right, it felt good, and I felt that not only would my dad like be proud of me for what I was achieving, but I felt proud of me, and you guys felt proud of me, which just was better than anything else. So I hope that you enjoyed this light little deep dive into, you know, some of the inspirations behind the music, and I hope that you will stay tuned for music that I make going forward. My band OK Goodnight is in the writing room right now, and I've never been more excited for what we're writing. It is very different from what we have put out so far, but I've never been more connected to the music that I'm making, so I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm working on solo music still. Go check out Martine Gonzalez's other projects as well. He is so incredible. Go check out Atomic Guava. They're a really, really fun band if you haven't heard them already. And also go check out every single composer that worked on Volume 9, because we had a really big team and we were really blessed to have everyone that we had. We had Martin de Lima, we had Matthew Wang, we had Peter Jones, and we had Martine Gonzalez as well, of course. I will see you guys in the next video. I will definitely put up some more polls. I think that the next thing that we're maybe gonna cover was favorite like movies. That's super sick. I can't wait to talk about my favorite movies of all time. Thank you for watching all of this. You're amazing. Stay safe. Treat others the way you want to be treated, you know, all that kind of shit. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!